Welcome back to Black Men Screaming, coast to coast, from the Brooklyn Bridge to the San Francisco Gate Bridge. And joining us in this segment we call Is There Something on Your Mind? Is the beautiful and brilliant Miss Lorie Jones, Executive Director of Village Circle Incorporated. Welcome back, Lorie.
Thank you very much.
So, Miss Jones, is there something on your mind?
Yeah, there's something on my mind. It's somewhat controversial because I've seen over the internet comments in either direction. But what scares me is that we're seeing more and more instances within our community that are reinforcing the fact that the big picture is not being discussed. I know we started out with the Bill Cosby and the R. Kelly situation, and I think R. Kelly was more of a sensitive situation because of the nature of the fact that there were a lot of young women of color that were involved, and although the actions are alleged that he is alleged to have done were basically, I guess, a person of color committing a crime against a person who is of color as well. And a lot of the women who went through that saw the argument come up on the male side about the defense that due process was due and that you can't convict somebody without evidence and things of that nature, which is a very valid argument, innocent until proven guilty. But I think the lack of support on the women who may have gone through this type of a situation, I think was unbalanced. And it saddened me, the fact that some of these, first of all, some of them were children, very young girls. And the fact that it was a possibility that it happened, and there was little or no arguments in defense of these young women and what they potentially went through. More argument was made on the fact of, innocent until proven guilty. And that worried me. I mentioned to a friend of mine that although the only encounter I've ever had personally with violence was, over 25 years ago in DC when somebody snatched my pocketbook and I tussled with them for a little while, before, the strap popped. That left me devastated, angry, feeling violated, things of that nature. I couldn't even imagine the introduction of a sexual component to violence of some sort of nature with that introduced. I couldn't imagine what an individual would feel if they went through that situation, much less feel if after they went through that situation, they received no support in terms of trying to help them work through the situation or get to the truth, etc. And I say the reason I think there's more situations that are occurring is because even on a lesser note, there was a situation with Gabrielle Union and Terry Crews, where Gabrielle Union had said when Terry Crews stepped forward during the Me Too movement and said he was sexually assaulted by an individual, even as a man, she stepped up and she supported him. And then when she tried to make a comment about feeling like she's discriminated against on the television show, then he turned around and was basically saying, well, I didn't see anything happening and I don't think anything's wrong and everything's been fine for me. Where again, the idea that of the Black woman was not supported by the Black man, even though she had done that for him in his time, she had no concrete knowledge that he had been violated, but she supported him in what she believed to be his truth. But the same concept was not afforded to her. So I say that to say, I think the problem is we're not speaking to each other, and we're not speaking to each other from a aspect of understanding or empathy. And the same way that if your daughter, your wife, your mother, or your close female friend came home and said, this guy attacked me, or this guy sexually assaulted me, or this guy raped me, I don't think most men would look at it initially and say, oh, you're a liar, or women do this all the time, or women have been out to destroy Black men all the time. I don't think they would take that approach, but I think that type of approach was taken to most of these circumstances as they occurred.
Well, the first thing I would say to you, Jones, is how do you know that? How do you know that men have not been supported? I mean, what type of support are you talking about? Do you want verbal support? Do you want internet support, or do you want physical support? I know a lot of black men that feel that they love black women. We came from black women, and but we also recognize historically within this nation the lack of due process. We recognize the philosophy of, Willie Lynch. We've seen what has happened when black men have stood up to try to protect black women, and there's always been an argument. There used to be this guy on the internet that used to be on YouTube. I forgot his name. His name was Sergeant something, and he argued with black women back and forth. And he said that black women has never forgiven black men for not protecting them during slavery. And that process has come forward in this particular conversation that we're talking about. And it becomes emotional for some of us, because when we look at the situation pertaining to due process in this country, we there's a woman who talked about due process in this country and the lack of it and the consequences of the lack of it. Her name was Ida B. Wells. She talked about what they call the Red Record. We can go back. There's a museum that they opened up showing what the results of the lynching of black men due to the lack of due process. We can look at the situation just talking about the Scottsboro boys. Even before you talk about the Central Park Five, Scottsboro, we can go down the list of the lack of due process. So are we sensitive about due process? Yeah, because every time there's been a lack of it, we end up being shot, hung, stabbed, brutalized. So people need to understand that.
Yeah, and I think people do understand. I think specifically black women understand that, because, as you know, a black woman and her family are as affected by those situations, because the family is a unit. And the women who had to watch these things happen, or had to sit through false trials of their husband and lose the bread earner or the protector, etc., do have repercussions. I mean, we have Dr. Joy DeGruy, who talks about post-traumatic slave syndrome, about the psychological effects that individuals have had based on the components or the experiences that they incurred during slavery, that could be passed on for generation and generation. Specifically, I remember her talking about grandmothers, or she was talking about mothers and grandmothers. The mere fact that a parent, I think the example she used is that a parent could be at a parent-teachers night, and the black woman could be sitting next to the white woman, and the white woman would say, "Oh, well, Johnny did really well in school, and he's been doing so great," and or the black woman would say to the white woman, "Oh, Johnny, your son Johnny's been doing really well in school, and he got a star," and blah. And the white woman would go, "Oh, yes, and he's head of the Boy Scouts, and he's been doing this and that," and she'll sing up his accolades. And then if the white woman turns to the black woman and says, and what about your son? What about your son Trevor? Trevor's doing well. The black mother might say, "Oh man, Trevor, that boy, he's a handful. Every once in a while he'll do something good, but he's just a handful." And she'll say something that's more derogatory, as opposed to accepting the praise and begging, giving him more accolades. But she said that certain behaviors like that came from the days of slavery, because right. if a overseer or the master came to the woman and said, "Oh, well, your Johnny's growing into a big, strong boy," and blah, 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 she'd say, "Oh, man, that kid doesn't know how to act right." She'll say negative stuff, because she knew that if she actually said positive stuff, he could be sold. He could be, given more work to do. There's a lot of things that she did that would automatically cause her to discourage her child from looking good in the eyes of other individuals. So things like that behavior can pass on. And so I understand that there may be repercussions in the mindset or residual negative feelings in the mindset of black men. My concern is the division that it breeds between the black male and the black female when they are constantly bickering over this. I mean, we have the situation with Oprah Winfrey and Gayle King. Yeah, most people, I should say, will look at it and say it was really stupid of Gayle King to mention anything about Kobe Bryant in a negative standpoint when his body wasn't even buried. when she was interviewing Lisa Leslie. Very poor taste, downright stupid. But for people to now come after her and now turn her entire character into, oh, Black women are always against Black men, or Black women are always trying to drag Black men down, saying the same thing about Oprah Winfrey, and then, wipe away any accomplishments that she's had in terms of, building a school in Africa or things of that nature. All of a sudden, they demonize individuals beyond the actual incident. And that's what I'm saying in terms of.
Well, let me respond to that, because are we talking about demonizing, or are we talking about people being accountable? When we look at Gayle King and we look at the situation, first of all, Snoop should have respected her at first as his elder and as a woman. He should have never called her out of her name, nor even said anything pertaining to the issue of, we're gonna come and get you. But that's his emotions coming out, and his love for Kobe Bryant and what he meant to him. So he was wrong in that. We recognize that. You had all these people that came running after him after that, but then again, people didn't recognize, this country didn't understand the depth of love that people have for Kobe and the impact of his life in the community. Gayle King is being called out because of her hypocrisy. Gayle King is friends with Harvey Weinstein. When that question was addressed to her, she deflected on it. Gayle King is friends with Charlie Rose. When she was asked on that question, she deflected on it. But yet you're going to come after Kobe and stuff. People find that straight up 100% hypocritical of her.
Yeah, but a lot of people were friends with these individuals before they found out what they did. I mean, if you say they continue to be friends, then
I'm not talking about their friendship. I'm talking about when they were questioned, she was questioning about their behavior. She deflected on those questions, yet she questioned Kobe's behavior. How dare you?
Because I'm not making a comparison between one or the other, but I'm saying someone who is embarrassed that they associate. I mean, look at people, how people reacted when they found out about Matt Lauer, who had been on the air for umpteen years and, been part of the morning show and everyone loved him, and, where in the world is Matt Lauer? He was a celebrity until people found out what he was doing. Same thing for the allegations against Les Moonves or anyone. I'm not making the comparison between who was wrong, who was a sexual predator, I'm making a comparison between looking at things from a healing standpoint versus looking at things from a just remaining, and then with Oprah, a divisive standpoint. And the one thing I want to say is that we have to look at the fact that we have come after individuals within our own community harder than we have those who are outside of our community that may deserve it as much or even more. Look Excellent. At Imus in the morning. Let me make a point. Let me just make this one point. Look at Imus in the morning.
When he called them nappy-headed.
When he called the Rutgers basketball team nappy-headed hoes, everyone, oh, that was terrible, and it was racist and blah blah blah. I still don't think they came after him as hard as they did Gayle King or Oprah Winfrey. And then he was put back on the air, and no one said a word. I mean, I'm saying it's fine to hold people accountable. It's even, in my opinion, fine to hold people within your own community more accountable, because you expect more. You may expect more from them given the circumstances of what their community's gone through. But I still think it's wrong for you to now continue divisive behavior in a circumstance where the community is already divided.
Well, I'm talking about accountability. I'm not talking about the individual's comment.
My problem is that if you look at the fact that Oprah Winfrey, this is not the first time the Black community has come after her. I remember when she had a show a long time ago where she tried to bring up the rap industry. She brought Russell Simmons, I've got the name of the other gentleman. She brought a few individuals on her show to talk about the fact that the negative stereotypes,
misogyny,
the misogyny, connected to the industry of perpetuating negative images of Black women was something that needed to be discussed.
And she was right about that.
They immediately jumped on her. And, when she made a comment, I think somebody in the audience made a comment about using the B word, calling women bees and hoes. And she said, I'm glad you said that, because I don't want to be the only one saying that. And sure enough, after that show aired, she was attacked by Ludacris, saying, well, when I started to speak, she didn't give me enough time to respond. She was attacked by everyone about she's going against Russell Simmons, similar to the way she's being attacked now about being a part of or she was going to be a part of the expose connected to Russell Simmons. Again, I'm not talking about whether or not allegations against individuals are justified or whether or not you have a right to give the impression that someone should be convicted when you don't have the proper justification. I'm talking about the fact that if we try and discuss issues within the community that may be of concern to a portion of the community, I don't think it's a reason to now attack the individual, their entire character, and now lose sight of the issue that you're discussing.
Well, the issue is, from Black men's perspective, how supportive has Oprah Winfrey been to Black men in the community? When you look at the projects that she's been involved in, where there are certain caricatures that are about Black men. Same thing with Tyler Perry. They go after Tyler Perry about plenty of his stuff pertaining to how he portrays Black men. So Oprah ain't the only one, and he's a man and stuff. So don't make it seem like we just running after Oprah. There are people that are on Tyler Perry's case also and despise his movies because there never is a positive image, even though lately there's been a change, maybe 1 or 2 of his movies and stuff. And then they look at that situation, like, why would Oprah be involved in producing these exposés that are destroying people that are quote unquote lionized within the community?
Well, I don't want to overanalyze it, but the way I would look at it is, first of all, she's already made her history clear. She's talked about being abused. She's talked about, having a promiscuous childhood because of the abuse. She had that situation. Gabrielle Union has done the same thing. She's talked about being raped, violently raped when she was working in some sort of facility or whatever. She's talked about her sexual abuse situation as well. So individuals who have, I don't want to call it baggage, but have justifiable circumstances within their life situation are going to approach things from a certain standpoint. I don't know why it would baffle anyone that Oprah Winfrey would latch on to advocating for female empowerment over alleged abuse situations when they've been abused. I don't know why that's baffling to anyone. I don't think it's specifically her attacking
and men don't know why it's baffling to black
men.
And then men don't understand why Black women, it's baffling to them to understand the whole philosophy of due process with the history of how Black men have been treated in America.
So you should disregard. I'm not sure what you're saying. So you should disregard the statements made by people alleging against Black men because of the fact that they've been unjustly involved in the court system.
How many times have we seen Black men be involved in the court system and it turned out they were innocent? We're saying due process. Due process.
Okay, and then the ones who've had due process, Bill Cosby, he went through the due process and people still were, advocating the fact that he's speaking out in jail against other situations or, tweeting. Because
he felt that they were being hypocrites about the way they have addressed the situation, not only pertaining to his situation, but the people that they are associated with. Like, again, Harvey Weinstein. Go back and look. If you want to talk about something, go back and look at the interviews that Gail have done when they asked the question about Harvey Weinstein and see how she responded. And then wonder why people are saying this. So, well, why is there a difference?
I'm not defending Gail. I'm actually not really a fan of her interview style. Even though everybody made a big thing about what she got R. Kelly to do and all that other stuff, I've never been a fan. I'm not trying to support her as an interviewer or even support her individually. My point is the big picture is when we run into situations like this that continue to divide the community and all we have is one side against the other side with no conversation, just like you're saying to me, as a woman, I've never been a man and I never will be. While I can empathize with Black men being stopped in, you know, in the stop and frisk situation, or, you know, in the a disproportionate portion of the population in jail. While I can empathize with situations like that, I can never feel it the way you feel it. Similarly, a man can never they can empathize with a woman who's been sexually abused or, you
Right.
know, gone through some, but they can never actually feel it. So what I'm saying is that if we don't have communication which opens the lines of understanding and moves towards healing the community, there'll be a further divide which will not be to the benefit of our community, and will only serve to help the community on the outside that's looking to watch us continue with infighting.